We're not taking it easy, we're gonna go hard in the paint with the X10 Mechanic Master and find out if it is a master, an ass blaster in video games, or if it is a cheap plastic piece of shit. We're gonna peel this banana out of her packaging, test it on a variety of components, and find out if you should pick up the $60 wireless Hall Effect Thumbstick module gamepad for Switch and PC, or if you should pass on it and pick up one of the hundreds, I had to put phlegm in there because there is that many, of one of its competitors. You can run the intro now, you don't have to keep hanging out here. The review doesn't go anywhere if you don't run the intro, so boop. Quick disclaimer for my audience, the Stallions and Stallionettes, this controller, as well as the other EasySMX X10 that I just reviewed, were sent together for review. But those are both honest, comprehensive reviews. I was never paid or told to say anything about them. EasySMX doesn't get a nearly preview of these videos, so if there's any cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement, you're gonna hear about it. So these companies make better products over time. Today we're checking out the X10, which awkwardly enough, or a little bit confusing to my brain, is a better, more expensive, more high-end controller than the X15 that we've previously reviewed at $40 US. You would expect it to be maybe the X16 or X20. Generally a higher number means a higher echelon or tier of controller. The X10 is a smaller number but a bigger boy.
Hey big boy. Hey, how you doing?
Also, bigger review haunches on it as well. 63 5-stars on their website, though. I don't know about the validity of all those. Let's check it out. It is a $50 wireless controller for Switch and PC, which does sport magnetic Hall Effect thumbstick modules, and it does come in 2 colorways, although the purple is almost always out of stock. And also, it isn't like a real noticeable purple. It's kind of more of a light purple tint on a silver metallic faceplate. Holy shit, that one's sick. But you can't access that anywhere. Select it to buy it. You just keep scrolling over and then you see this picture, probably because they're swappable faceplates. And you can buy through this website. They do have PayPal, which is great to see, and Apple Pay, Google Pay. That looks super legitimate over there. I personally would recommend checking out Amazon, as you do have that additional layer of customer support by going with that third-party option. It's right here, X10. You got the sponsored link over here. I don't like those. They're usually pretty stinky. 306 reviews for 4.4 stars. You've got dark gray, gray, purple. Again, the purple is like, is that really purple, my friend? Sure. These versions are unavailable. These versions include a faceplate. Some of the key notable features of this controller: you do have a 1-year warranty. It's pretty standardized here in North America. You get better over there across the pond if you're in Europe or Asia. As for modes of connectivity, you do have a Bluetooth Nintendo Switch mode, which we'll be testing the speeds of. You do have a 2.4 gigahertz dongle, which we'll be testing the speeds of. We do have a wired USB-C connection, which we'll be testing the speeds of. And then you have Bluetooth, which is the Nintendo Switch mode, which we'll be testing the speeds of, and trying to overclock, of course. You know where you are, you know where you've stopped by for a review. This isn't, I don't know where I was going with that. This is a GamerHeaven review, sweetheart. Mechanical face buttons, love them. Not only is it a personal preference for me, I like that tactile click. Even if I'm wearing a headset, I still get a positive actuation, but also they're generally rated for a tap life cycle, as opposed to membrane switches, which this is unfortunately one of those hybrid designs that has mechanical pads to actuate, but then it also has the little membrane plunger in there. I personally prefer going all the way to mechanical, because when you have these hybrids, you still have the restrictions of membrane. You can get these stuck in at any time because it's got that little sensitive rubber plunger mechanism, and usually you remove that tap life cycle by having one of these pads in there. You do have Hall Effect thumbstick modules and Hall Effect dual trigs, which Hall Effect triggers is not nearly as much as a selling factor as the thumbsticks because it's not as common of a point of failure, and also the precision or accuracy you get out of magnetic Hall Effect triggers isn't really noticeable compared to Hall Effect versus potentiometer thumbsticks. That can be measured in something like GPT or gamepad tester. I'm all over the road today. I know I'm going to try and swerve back on the road and downshift and back on it. This is what happens when you let me have coffee in copious amounts. Replaceable magnetic faceplate cover. The only cool thing about this is that you can change out the looks of your controller instead of having to buy an all new controller. And you can also paint it easier yourself if you wanted to rattle can spray paint that bitch in the garage. You do, of course, have control of the board, things like turbo, macro support for the rear buttons, controlling the vibration, and lighting if this had RGB lights. You do have a 1000 milliamp hour battery on board. We'll talk more about the charge times and playtime during the battery section. 6-axis motion control, talk about that later. It's not great compared to the accuracy you get out of the standard Switch Pro controller. It's kind of an oxymoron to say that there, the standard Switch Pro controller. I don't know why Nintendo decided to go with that naming scheme, calling it the Pro controller. It's really just a regular full-size gamepad, you silly nimrods. Oh boy, weird flex over here. I don't even know if that's like a selling factor. Most people are kind of terrified of AI right now and steer clear of it, but a new AI designed magnetic cover. Okay, I'm not even gonna touch on it. I'm just gonna keep browsing. So this is a really useful chart or diagram showing you the different models in the lineup, the X10, 15. Don't worry about these two over here. Pretend they don't exist. I reviewed this bad boy on the channel about 3 years ago. Actually liked it quite a bit. There's also a bunch of different faceplate versions of it. However, the newer controllers from EasySMX are substantially better and still in the same price point. Hang out over here with these two. Why the hell do they always list Steam? A PC, it's going to include all the launchers, baby. Steam right there. Switch, that's the Bluetooth connectivity mode. Also Android, same Bluetooth chip. The X15 does not have motion control. I do believe I mentioned that in passing in the review for the X15, but it was kind of like a 3-second, hey, this doesn't have that. I didn't really dance around the topic. There's no 3.5 millimeter headphone jack on any of those, so you can just jack yourself off if you wanted to go wired. It doesn't matter to me in a long time because I've been doing the wired headset thing, as a lot of you watching probably have. But if you I got stunned flashbang for a second. If you want to plug in some buds, maybe you got some Skull Candy inks. Remember those? Yeah, they still sell them. You want to pop those in. There's no hole for you to shove yourself into. Vibration, you do have 3 gear on these bad boys and a little bit more top speed on the highway with 4 gears over here. Stupid feature to be talking about right here. And then the triggers, not a big selling factor, but they're old school linear Johns on this bad boy, and you've got the Halls on these. It doesn't matter at all. Quick note, EasySMX also does sell audio devices, headsets, and earbuds. Oh, yeah, there are one set of earbuds and then children headsets. Excuse me. So smaller over the ear headsets, but these all look, I mean, you can just look at them and be like, yeah, those are rebranded generic bottom at wish.com, Alibaba, AliExpress chunks of plastic here. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think I am. Taking a look at the ass blaster, the X10 Mechanic Master. Key notable features on the front. If you want to pause and zoom, you may do so now. A little bit more flavor for you around on backside. You got Gamer's Choice in English with some Chinese characters underneath it, and then you have some plastic holding your controller in place. You apparently will have this magnetic palm grip popped off all nilly-willy like that, and one of the cheapest looking 2.4 gigahertz dongles in production. Holy shit. I can tell just by looking at it, and it was confirmed immediately by touching it with the skin. It is cheap, porous plastic. This feels like I'm holding nothing but air. Also a really large seam where the two pieces of plastic meld together, no dust cover. You do have cutouts for your fingers to get the controller out easier. Okay, apparently not. Just lifts the whole kit and caboodle up. And at the bottom of your caboodled kit, you do have what appears to be another palm grip sitting in there nilly-willy, an instruction manual, and a braided USB-C cable. Okay, this is where the foam lives in the packaging, this little slab at the bottom, and didn't do a very good job of holding all the components or parts in place like it's supposed to. I do like that both the swappable options are different colors. It'd be stupid, and I've seen it previously, where it's like 2 black faceplates or 2 white faceplates. Give me a different color way, please. As for the instruction manual, pamphlet, or brochure, English instructions on pages 2 through 8, and it's pretty beneficial. English is the primary language, or first one, I guess. Pretty good font, and you have a nicely laid out and labeled diagram. You do have your instructions for engaging turbo or auto fire, and then interestingly enough, you do have the estimated charge time at 2 to 3 hours, but not the runtime. As for the cosmetics or appearance, it's a little bit boring. As you can see, it put my pup to sleep. Well, it's not really a pup, she's kind of getting older, but you do have 2 swappable faceplates, reflective anti-friction rings, which do function well, and I'm glad to see they're not some RGB, because I would just disable that anyway, and that adds to the build cost. I do like the metallic paint job. I think it looks pretty damn good, but overall, this looks like a pretty cheap controller, which it is, but this doesn't really strike me as a handsome controller either. She's not my first pick of the lot, that's for sure. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 5 out of 10. As for the ergonomics or comfort, it's almost identical shape and shell design to an Xbox One or Series controller, although it seems as if the palm grips are angled a little bit more aggressively, cocked at somewhat of an awkward angle, which doesn't really give my middle fingers a very comfortable place to hike up. Also, these palm grips, which are removable, you don't really feel that this is a separate removable piece, but what you do sure as hell notice is the fact that this isn't rubber. It looks like it would be, but it is plastic for sure. for sure, for sure. Overall, it's not an uncomfortable controller, but definitely not one of the more comfortable ones I've felt. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 6 out of 10. Had to really deliberate in my mouth before I delivered it. 6 out of 10. As for the perceived build quality, no EasySMX controller has ever blown my socks back or twisted my nipples positively in the build quality. This feels like a sturdy built controller. They're generally sub $60 controllers flown in from the depths of China. I didn't mean to word it like it's hell over there or anything. Maybe if you like social rights and stuff like that. I just meant the deepest parts of China where all the consumer electronic goodies spawn in. What raises an eyebrow in the QC department actually isn't the fact that there are 3 separate pieces, the faceplate and each palm grip that can be removed with magnets, which generally make a controller feel less secure, having more modular removable pieces. But it's the fact that these look like they should be rubber grips and they're not. Hardest silly williest plastic ever. The plastics around backside and with the bumper and trigger suite, which you're touching the entire time unless you hold the controller in a really silly way, pinching it like a crab. It's not very comfortable, and a lot of that transfers over to how do I feel about the build quality as well. No creaks or moans and groans. I try and give it the flex or stress test and break the hell out of it. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 4 out of 10. And if you do have any issues, you do have 1 year of warranty coverage. As for the D-pad or direction buttons, this has what EasySMX calls metal dome. Super weird because it's plastic and not a dome. It is a typical 4-point, not even a hybrid, so it's super fucking weird. I don't know where they got the dome idea from. Maybe take a look at the Vegas sphere if you want to see what a circle or orb looks like. But I actually do like the D-pad a lot, like enough to give it an 8 out of 10 in this section because it is virtually silent while still giving you a nice tactile click, kind of the best of both worlds between a membrane and a mechanical. Also, the shape, I'm going to be overlaying some B-roll so you can see through my corneas what I'm looking at. They are rounded, kind of have a cutoff or drop, which is perfect for roll-offs, fighting games, anything where you're using that D-pad frequently or constantly. And if you're somebody like me that typically plays games where you're only using the D-pad to navigate menus or swap weapons, it's going to be there for you when you need it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 8 out of 10, maybe even an 8.5 out of 10. I'm feeling extremely generous this morning. Face or action buttons, also really freaking good. I was surprised about that because when I picked up the controller, I was a little bit let down. But I started diving into the components, you know, swimmer's putty in, call me Michael Phelps, backstroke, breaststroke, my favorite. I start really diving into the components and realize this controller's been getting a lot of hype and recommends to review for a reason. These mechanical buttons are phenomenal. I couldn't find a tap life cycle, but if I do later, pop it up on screen here. They're not very loud. In fact, some of the most quiet mechanical buttons. Also, very nice resistance, almost a little bit on the heavier side, so you're not going to get any false actuations. But if you do have weaker hands, maybe you're a child or a lady gamer, or, well, some ladies have real strong hands, but, you know, somebody with weaker mitts, then this isn't going to fatigue you or anything. Also, it is flat, not gloss, so you're not going to collect fingerprints or micro scratches. The font or lettering, I think, looks pretty cool. Face or action buttons, an 8 out of the 10. For me. As for the accessory button suite, a couple of things I really do like is the additional function buttons, things like turbo and macro and adjusting the vibration motors. That's all done at the bottom, which I think it always should be on the bottom or back, somewhere where you're not going to accidentally hit it thinking that it's pause or options, which are going to be up here. The EasySMX logo, which is technically going to work as your home button, is not only flush, but also almost sunken in a little bit with the front faceplate, making it a little bit of a chore to hit. It works, no complaints there. Also think their logo with the little Stallion John on there. I have no complaints with the accessory button suite. Something worth noting, they are not mechanical, so it doesn't match the face buttons and D-pad. You're going to get a membrane switch in there. But no complaints here. I'm going to give the accessory button suite an 8 out of 10. Now, as for the thumbsticks, analog sticks, joysticks, front niblets, giblets, doodads, MIC-rads, whatever the shit you want to call them, I'm going to call them pretty damn good. They are Hall effects, so they're virtually stick drift proof. Also, they feel as if they have a little bit of increased resistance. I did buy a tool to measure that. It's not for controllers, for things like PSI, trigger squeezing point, trigger breaking point, stuff like that. But it can be used for controllers. Definitely not what its intended use is for, but since it is a press pull measurement tool, you can use it for that. I tried it for a while. Don't really think I'm going to implement it in my reviews. I might, but I wasn't getting as consistent and accurate readings as I'd like to implement it in-made reviews personally, I can just tell from feeling and then relay it onto you. These do feel like they're a little bit stronger than Xbox or PlayStation 5 thumbsticks. They kind of are reminiscent of the Xbox 360 if you picked up one of those controllers. Feels great. Clicking down L3 and R3 also feels nice. Those anti-friction rings, I'm gliding along smooth plastic when I'm on the outside of my thumbstick gates, and you will too. That's fucking nice. But they are gloss, which looks shitty. Stupid. Dumb. As for KontrolFreek compatibility, PlayStation 4 and 5 caps, wrong nipple. This one over here, loose and wiggly. Now you won't rotate it in normal gameplay, but if you pinch it, you can twist it very easily. The Xbox ones, as they are the smallest in diameter, don't look at me, look at the controller, feel perfect, and that's what I would recommend. A close second would be the Nintendo Switch, which still rotates, but not nearly as loose and wiggly as the PS4 and 5s. How do these perform in Gamepad Tester? Over here in Gamepad Tester, give me a second to hydrate. Not only do you need to have that toggle or slider in the back set to the wired mode if you are going wired, but you also, please autofocus, thank you sweetheart, need to press that home button in the front. And you are going to see a perfectly calibrated resting value of 0.00002. Love to see that. Also, no weird inner or outer dead zone, so when I feather over these thumbsticks, they are instantly recognizing that movement. Ooh, that's... don't like to see that over there in Axis 3 not snapping back. Come on, sweetheart. So I can cheese it and get it to not snap back to that perfect resting value, which isn't great. I don't like to see that, but it is also nowhere near a cause for concern, as generally you don't start feeling stick drift in game until your sticks are like, whoa, really walking the yard in GPT or Gamepad Tester. Circularity test, shall we? That is going to give us our thumbstick accuracy, not just how circular these thumbsticks are, but also how even, what's the inner and outer dead zone looking like. They're looking like what we're used to seeing with potentiometer thumbstick modules, and we have gotten a little spoiled with well-calibrated Hall effect modules being in the 1% average error rate range, which is great. And these, not so much. These are functional. If you've used an Xbox or PlayStation controller, they're going to feel just like them thumbsticks. As for the bumpers, love the way they feel, don't like the way they sound. They're a little bit loud and also have this kind of clickety-clackety hollow sound. Hold on, there's a garbage truck driving by and it's not even garbage day. The timing is actually impeccable because this is the part of the video where I'm going to cut the background noise and you're going to hear nothing but this button press. So I need absolute fucking silence around here. Good. Nice low noise floor here. Here we go. Perfect. You can tell that they sound like hot dog ass, but they do feel really nice. You have the stippling up here with these little dibbity dots, which feel just like a standard Xbox Series controller. And what's really cool is you can actuate them with the meat of your finger or the tip very easily. Feels very nice. You have this entire pressure pad up here kind of distributing the bumper perfectly. I love these, and they are mechanical, by the way. That's the big deal. As for the triggers, there is no stop or lock system, and these cannot be turned into a mechanical mouse click, but they have a nice linear squeeze, nice resistance, good range of motion, good travel. Like those little dots on there, I'm gonna go ahead and give them 6 out of 10. 6 out of the 10. To remap the rear buttons, a little confusing because they only mention one of them, M1, should be M1/2 because you can remap both of them, but it's pretty simple. Once paired up to a console or PC, hold down the settings, which is that little cog icon. Lights are going to flash on you, letting you know you're in programming mode. Hit the face or action button you want bound, and you're good to go. Now, I'm not really going to spend hardly any time talking about these rear buttons because I have covered this exact 2 rear button design at least 20 times on the channel, as it is the go-to for generic. Well, this isn't generic. I understand this is from a brand, EasySMX, but well, these rear buttons are parts bin specials that are grabbed from PDP, PowerA, a bunch of Chinese companies, thrown into these gamepads that are produced for pennies on the dollar, sold to us for between $40 and $60. Blah, blah, blah. Preachers acquire here. These are the same ones that are in the 8-bit dough Ultimate for Xbox, GameSir, G7. So you can watch any of those reviews, but you're already watching this one, so I'll catch up speed. They're pretty quiet. They're in a good ergonomic position. Wish there were 2 more of them. You can bind them on the fly, and that includes multi-press macro. I don't use it, but you can. Rear buttons, 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10. The X10 sports a 1000 milliamp hour battery on board, which should get you approximately 15 to 20 hours of use time. There is no RGB lights to disable, but you can turn down the vibration on the fly. Although I will say in a use case scenario, I was only averaging about 10 hours of gameplay, and it's claimed to have fast charging, but their fast charging still takes 2 to 3 hours to charge as opposed to like 30 minutes to an hour to get fully juiced up. But since the input lag or delay is so atrocious with the dongle or with Bluetooth, and I strongly recommend going wired with this controller, you technically wouldn't need to worry about battery life either. Running us a little test in Gamepad LA, rotating that left analog stick in a circle without stopping, because once I start going, I do not stop, and you are going to see Around 1 millisecond of input lag or delay right out of the box without an overclock on a 1000 hertz stock polling rate. Fuck me sideways. Love it. Pull up the other program that we use all the time, which is X input test. I like it more. Shows a lot more data. Spinning and grinning in a circle, you were... I didn't even have time to say anything slick or silly because the test completed so fast. PC's receiving its 1,000 samples really quick, even with those 27 outliers. So better that time, but there's still some outliers in there, which are going to be some numbers that don't agree with the rest of its compadres. Sweet, that one was really good actually, and as you can see, we are at 1 millisecond of input lag or delay. The reason that's not reflected down here is we have those major outliers throwing off the average. To do such a thing in such a world, you're gonna unplug so the internet can see I'm not rappelling from the ceiling from an invisible cable or anything. This is real magic here, folks. Put that slider into either Bluetooth or Nintendo Switch. It's gonna do the same Bluetooth connectivity mode. I'm gonna do BT for Bluetooth, and then I'm gonna hold the home button for a second. This LED light is gonna be flashing blue, letting me know I am in pairing mode. Share my screen for you. Add a device. Bluetooth. Make sure you are still in pairing mode. Please don't stay in there forever. Cool. Xbox wireless controller. Click it and stick it. Vibrates in my hand and we are connected. It was that easy. And sometimes it is not that easy to connect a controller via Bluetooth. Cool. And it's already in X input mode. It's not in switch mode or anything stupid like that. Speaking of stupid, slow, inconsistent, stuttery, sputtery, not an ideal way of using a controller. Bluetooth. Yeah, Bluetooth has come a long way. The PlayStation 5 uses Bluetooth 5.1, which is really good. I couldn't find what Bluetooth card is on board, so I'd actually have to do a teardown or disassembly, and even after doing that, there's a possibility the part's not even labeled. But venturing a guess, I wouldn't even say that this is Bluetooth 5.0. This looks like Bluetooth 3.0, which is in the Nintendo Switch controller. That's just judging off these huge 43 right there, all over the road, jitter high as shit. This is probably around 100 hertz polling rate. It's very slow. Wouldn't use the Bluetooth, but that is what you are going to use on Switch, and it's not as noticeable on Switch in comparison to playing on PC, especially if you're trying to play competitively. You'd be screwed.
I'll be careful.
You'll be dead!
Connecting the dongle, getting paired, is instantaneous. If you do come unhinged, there's a pairing button on the side of the dongle, and then you put the slider in the back into the dongle mode and hold down the home button, and it will pop it back into pairing mode. But mine was already ready to run, and speaking of ready to run, oh boy, that's not good. This controller is recognized in Gamepad Tester as an Xbox 360 controller. However, when we go to run X input test, it is not. This controller is most likely in either switch mode or D input. No worries, let's run ReWAS to spoof the PC into thinking we have an Xbox 360 controller connected. Now we're here in ReWAS. All you need to do is come over to switch to 360, and then you need to activate the profile, hit apply to slot, and then behind my head, bam, it's activated. And now when we launch X input tester, what the fuck? Just to confirm this is the controller, whenever I click this icon, it vibrates in my hand, and we are in the switch to 360 profile. Let's deactivate it and then activate it again. Now we should be good. I don't think it activated the first time. What's happening? This is the exact method I've been using on ReWAS for about 2 years with controllers to switch it into X input mode, spoofing the PC into thinking it's an Xbox 360 controller. It's not working here. I'm gonna keep trying. Also, something to note is you do not have separate control of the two rear buttons, so you cannot bind them to things like spacebar, alt, Windows controls. It's just going to be rebinding what's already on the controller. Things like the face buttons and D-pad. Super weird. So whenever you're connected with the dongle, it is working in Gamepad Tester. It is working in Steam. I can play with it, but it's got to be in D input or switch input, not X input. But that's not a big deal because we can still measure the input lag or delay in Gamepad LA. So right now we're at about, bouncing around a shitload between 3 to now in 10 milliseconds. Not very consistent, I can tell you that right about now. Yeah, between 3 and 16, so very wide. Jitter, super high. And we're in a precarious position as we're between 4 and 8 milliseconds. Right, 5.3 right there. I'm gonna go ahead and run it again. Why I say that's a precarious, that's the wrong program. Why I say that's a precarious position is usually there's very distinct stops when it comes to these polling rates. It goes 125, 250, 500, 1000. There's usually not weird middle points like I'm on a 600 hertz polling rate or I'm at a 416 or something like that. It's usually 125, 250, 500, 1000. As we're here, it's showing you're around 6 milliseconds on 125 hertz stalker clocker. What's the overclocking situation looking like up in this piece? Over here in the Lord of Mice overclocking program with this drop down, we are going to select all. We're going to make this a little bit bigger for us. Pinch the bottom of the corner. Xbox 360 controller for Windows, not overclocked on a stock clock for anywhere between, 1 to 8 milliseconds of input lag or delay. It was definitely more towards 8. Overclock it to 1000. And you might be wondering to yourself, Kevin, where's that 8000 hertz option. This is an older build of the Lord of Mice overclocking software, despite the fact I used to have the 8000 option available. I have a rumor debunking video about why going with 8000 actually causes some consistency issues and doesn't really give you any higher peak speeds over the 1000. Let's install the service, shall we? Now we're going to unplug. We're going to replug. You're going to see that it is overclocked on 1000 hertz for 1 millisecond of input lag or delay, which kind of silly and pointless because it was already there to begin with if going wired. Let's measure it. So no difference whatsoever. It didn't make it any more consistent. We're still seeing those little bursts of outliers in there, but it is still fast as hell. Still the same peak speeds, same consistency. Whoop, walking on me a little bit there. So no perk, benefit, or reason to overclock with this controller. If you do want a fast connection, I would recommend going wired, as you are going to get around 1 millisecond of input lag or delay, and the dongle is going to get you around 6, and Bluetooth is going to get you, it's not going to get you anywhere in life, let me tell you that. Like I said, better Bluetooth technologies, 5.1, 5.2, good, pretty good. 5.0, 3.0, not so much. The big generational leaps or differences in the performance between all those generations when it comes to controllers. As for converter or adapter support, with the Brook Accessories XB2, you have 3 modes of connectivity. With the Xbox Series S and X consoles, you can go wired. You can plug the dongle into the back of the USB port, which makes it really long, sticking off the front of your console, potentially a trip hazard, so be careful. You can also pinch the 2 niblets on the side, putting it into Bluetooth discoverable mode, although with the results we saw during the input delay test, I wouldn't advise using Bluetooth. On the PS5 side of the house, you do have the restriction of only being able to play PS4 games and navigate the console, but you can go wired, use the dongle, or use the Bluetooth mode. So as for the pros, cons, and verdict, let's start with the cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement. There's no 3.5mm headphone jack. I don't really care. A lot of you don't. Some of you might. And for those that do, there's none. The dongle feels like a cheap piece of shit and also performs like a cheap piece of crap. The Bluetooth chip on board is probably some old outdated relic, some pre-war tech that the Brotherhood of Steel's been searching the wasteland for. This controller is listed as having tri-mode connectivity, but realistically with the input lag and delay where it is, I would really only use this controller wired. Me personally. On the Switch side of the house, where you don't really care about input lag or delay so much, but you just want a nice comfortable controller with the Switch-like features, this doesn't really have that either, because the 6-axis motion sensing was pretty stuttery and didn't provide a good experience for me. There is no amiibo support. That's kind of a big deal too. These rear buttons, they work, they're serviceable. I'm just getting pretty sick seeing them in so many controllers that I unbox. I flip it around backside and there's a little wave of disappointment that careens and caresses my soul as I realize, oh, you've talked about this exact rear button design many times. That's okay. At that point, I just got to bust out the thesaurus and start using different words to explain the same rear button suite. The next con, the build quality isn't very confidence inducing. It feels like a pretty damn cheap controller, and I don't really think it would survive a drop onto a hard floor, or at least not a spirited drop, like maybe a throw, a rage quit, or whatever you people do. The removable faceplate and palm grip feature I think should have been ditched on the X10, and the extra costs from build could have been reallocated to better parts or components, or just pass that savings along to the customer. It's stupid, provides no real perk or benefit other than you being able to paint them easier if you want to spray paint them or something. Onto the pros, the D-pad, face buttons, and bumpers are all mechanical, feel great, aren't obnoxiously loud, like them. The plastics used on the D-pad and face buttons, also very nice. 1000 hertz stock polling rate when going wired, very nice. If you prefer 2 rear buttons and not 4, this is still a tried and true good design. Just because I'm a little bit bitter about seeing it on so many controllers doesn't mean it's bad. It's probably on so many controllers because it works pretty good. Next pro, magnetic Hall effect thumbstick modules, virtually stick drift proof for you, perform very damn good as well. So in the grand scheme of the cream, the verdict here, would I recommend this controller? It's becoming harder to answer that question the more controllers I test and review, which is over 200 now.
What did you say his power level is? It's over 9,000! 9,000?
Correct, my power level is increasing with each controller I review. When I'm done, what I do is I melt them down into a liquid plastic form and inject them directly into the main vein. Just kidding, that would probably kill you. Staring at this controller longingly and deeply into the plastics, there is no real part or component, feature, aspect, or thing about this controller that makes me want to recommend it at the price point. Having said that, there's also nothing that offends me or makes me tell you to steer clear of it, other than the fact the build quality does feel a little bit cheap. You do still have a 1-year warranty if something breaks on you. It works like a normal controller with Hall effect sticks and mechanical face buttons, and the same 2 rear buttons we've seen we've seen once or twice. Personally, if I'm in the market for a Switch/PC controller with Hall Effect thumbstick modules in this price point, sub $80 controllers, I would steer towards the Ghoulie Kit KK3 or the FlyDigi Vader 3. That is a $90 controller, but it's on sale all the time for $80 on Amazon. Does a lot more than this bad boy. It's a better controller overall. This isn't bad. There is a wide, vast world of premium and pro controllers. And this slot's kind of low with its friends. This bad boy is linked in the description below. Drop in the comment section below what you're using to play on Switch, wherever you're playing your games nowadays, and I will see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more Stallions and Stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.